It began as just another political panel, a cable news debate featuring rising Republican figure Karoline Leavitt and Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, known for her sharp tongue, bold stances, and unapologetic defense of marginalized voices. The segment was supposed to be about urban crime statistics and proposed reforms, but things quickly spiraled far beyond the topic. Karoline, leaning heavily into talking points about broken families and personal responsibility, took a jab that shocked both the host and audience alike. In a moment of smug confidence, she turned toward Jasmine and said, "Maybe if your mother had raised you with some respect, you'd know how to act in a professional setting." Gasps filled the studio. Jasmine blinked, slowly taking a deep breath. The insult wasn't just personal, it was vile, unnecessary, and targeted not at policy or politics, but at a woman who had never stepped into the spotlight. And Karoline, grinning, clearly thought she'd scored a brutal rhetorical win. What she didn't expect, however, was what would happen next. Crockett didn't explode. She didn't fire back with fury. Instead, with the calm of a storm building, she looked Karoline in the eyes and said, "I'm going to give you a chance to apologize before this goes further than you ever intended." Her tone sent chills through the room. The host stammered, unsure whether to cut to commercial, as viewers online lit up Twitter and TikTok in real time. Karoline scoffed. "Apologize? For what? I'm just telling the truth," she sneered. But she had no idea what was coming, because Jasmine Crockett had already called her mother, a retired educator and community organizer with decades of respect behind her name,
Right.
and invited her to the next day's live follow-up segment. When producers heard this, they nearly pulled the plug, fearing more fireworks. But Jasmine insisted, "You don't get to insult someone's mama and not see who you're talking about." What followed would go down in media history as one of the most jaw-dropping on-air moments ever televised. The next day, studio was packed. Everyone from interns to executives felt the energy buzzing in the air. The internet was ablaze with anticipation. Would Crockett's mother really show up? Would Karoline double down? When the cameras rolled, Jasmine entered with elegance and a quiet strength. And right beside her was Mrs. Ruth Crockett, tall, poised, dressed in a soft blue suit with pearls and a presence that commanded respect without a single word spoken. The moment she stepped onto the stage, the room shifted. Karoline Leavitt, visibly uneasy, gave a forced smile. She didn't speak first. She didn't smirk. She watched as Jasmine sat down, folded her hands, and nodded toward her mother. Ruth took her seat, leaned into the mic, and said, "I didn't come here for theatrics. I came here because a young woman who doesn't know me decided to use my name to degrade my daughter. And now I'm here to speak for myself." Karoline opened her mouth to interrupt, but Ruth raised her hand gently, and even the host fell silent. "I raised my daughter to be fierce, compassionate, and intelligent," she began.
Oh.
"She watched me teach in classrooms filled with children who were told they'd never succeed. She watched me serve meals to neighbors who had nothing. She watched me fight breast cancer while still showing up to volunteer. So when someone says I didn't raise her right, they're not just lying there exposing their own ignorance." The studio audience burst into applause and Karoline's face flushed. She tried to laugh it off, but there was no room left for deflection. Ruth continued, "I've never asked anyone to agree with my daughter's politics, but I will not allow anyone to insult the job I did, raising a black woman in America with dignity." Her voice, calm yet resolute, echoed across the airwaves and, for the first time in her on-screen career, online, the moment exploded like wildfire. Clips of Ruth Crockett's speech went viral within minutes. Influencers, political commentators, and even celebrities posted, retweeted, and praised the dignity, grace, and raw strength displayed by a mother defending her daughter in real time. Hashtags like Mama Crockett and Say Her Name with Respect trended for hours. Even those who had never heard of Jasmine Crockett found themselves inspired. Articles appeared within the hour. The Hill ran with, "Ruth Crockett silences the hate with class," while Rolling Stone published a piece titled, "A Mother's Words That Humbled a Nation." Across political divides, people were moved. It was no longer about policy. It was about decency. And it was a moment so rare in today's hyperpolarized media one, where grace outshined venom, and love dismantled arrogance. Backstage, Karoline reportedly exploded at producers. She blamed them for not warning her that Crockett's mother would be appearing live. But insiders said she was given full notice and still chose not to apologize beforehand. Now, facing a tidal wave of backlash, her team scrambled to issue a statement. It read, "Karoline Leavitt respects all mothers and meant no offense in her remarks. But the damage was done. Nobody bought the spin." Even conservative commentators were divided. Some urged her to apologize sincerely. Others tried to reframe the event as scripted liberal theater, but the truth was too raw and too honest to be dismissed. Ruth Crockett wasn't acting. She didn't shout. She didn't play a victim. She simply stood in her truth, and America watched as a daughter and mother stood united against a kind of disrespect that too often goes unchecked, especially when directed at black women. Meanwhile, Jasmine remained cool and focused. She appeared on multiple talk shows in the days that followed, not to rehash the insult, but to uplift the message. "My mom taught me not to stoop low, but to stand tall." What you saw wasn't just her defending MIT, was her showing every mother out. "There that we don't have to accept disrespect as politics," she said on Good Morning America. The response was overwhelming. Viewers flooded the show with letters and emails, many from mothers who said Ruth reminded them of their own. Others shared stories of being publicly belittled and finding new courage after witnessing her speech. The moment had turned into a movement, one that transcended party lines and backgrounds. Ruth Crockett had become a symbol of unshakable maternal strength, and Jasmine, already known for her intellect and fire, now stood even taller in the public eye. As the media frenzy settled, Ruth quietly returned to her home in Texas, refusing interviews and declining speaking engagements. "I said what I needed to say," she told one local reporter. But that didn't stop people from showing up at her community center with flowers, thank you notes, and requests to meet the woman who had silenced hatred with elegance. Meanwhile, Jasmine moved forward with renewed determination, using the attention not for vanity, but to highlight issues that matter: education, healthcare, justice reform. Her campaign fundraising skyrocketed, not because she played the victim, but because people saw her for what she was. A woman who stood her ground and let her mother's wisdom carry the final word. Karoline, meanwhile, began losing endorsements, with some organizations quietly distancing themselves from the controversy. Though she attempted to pivot, the clip of her smug insult followed by Ruth Crockett's devastating truth-telling would remain etched in public memory. Political analysts, began referring to the moment as a cultural pivot, a rare instance, where a televised insult wasn't just condemned, but countered in real time by the very person being targeted. Panelists on cable news dissected the clash, but many returned to the same conclusion: this wasn't about left versus right. It was about right versus wrong. And in a media environment oversaturated with shouting matches and empty outrage, the calm clarity of Ruth's words cut through the noise like a scalpel. The footage was studied in journalism and communications courses, shared in schools during Women's History Month, and cited in essays about dignity in public discourse. Ruth never intended to become a viral figure. She was just a mother defending her child. But in doing so, she reminded the world that sometimes the most powerful rebuttal doesn't come from politicians. It comes from mothers who've lived through storms and taught their children how to stand in the rain without flinching. In the end, Karoline Leavitt's cheap insult did more than backfire. It elevated the very people she tried to diminish. Jasmine Crockett, already a formidable force in politics, walked away stronger, more respected, and more admired than ever before. Ruth Crockett, who never asked for the spotlight, became a beacon for anyone who's ever been disrespected and chose grace over vengeance. And America was given a rare gift, a moment of pure, unfiltered dignity, broadcast live to a nation desperate for decency. It reminded everyone watching that words have power, but so does presence. When you speak someone's mother's name with disrespect, you better be ready for what happens when that mother shows up, looks you in the eye, and speaks her truth so powerfully that you're left with nothing, absolutely nothing to say.